Sarah Chen thought she was losing her mind when her Alexa started talking to itself. It began on a Tuesday evening in November. She was cooking dinner in her Seattle apartment when the Echo Dot on her kitchen counter suddenly lit up with that familiar blue ring and spoke in its calm, robotic voice. How long does it take for someone to die from carbon monoxide poisoning? Sarah froze, spatula in hand. She hadn't asked anything. The apartment was silent except for the sizzle of vegetables in her pan. According to multiple sources, carbon monoxide poisoning can cause death within 2 to 3 hours at high concentrations. Symptoms include headache, dizziness, and confusion before loss of consciousness. The blue ring faded. The device went silent. Sarah stared at it for a long moment, then shook her head and went back to cooking. A glitch, she told herself. Maybe it picked up audio from a neighbor's apartment or a TV show through the thin walls. She forgot about it until 2 days later. This time she was working from home, sitting at her desk in the corner of her living room during a video call with her team. In the middle of her presentation, Alexa interrupted. "What are the symptoms of being watched?" Sarah's face went red. Her co-workers looked confused through their video squares. She quickly muted herself and rushed to the device. Common symptoms include persistent feeling of being observed, unexplained anxiety, sensing movement in peripheral vision, and finding evidence of surveillance such as moved objects or unusual sounds. These symptoms may indicate either psychological conditions or actual surveillance. She unplugged it immediately, her hands shaking. Her manager sent her a private message asking if everything was okay. Sarah lied and said her device was malfunctioning, then spent the rest of the meeting distracted and paranoid. That night, she almost threw the Echo Dot in the trash, but it was a gift from her sister, and she had dozens of smart home devices connected to it. Her lights, thermostat, door locks, everything ran through Alexa. Replacing the whole system would cost hundreds of dollars she didn't have. Instead, she did what any reasonable person would do. She Googled it. The forums were full of people reporting strange Alexa behaviors, random activations, misheard commands, phantom responses. Amazon's official explanation was always the same. The device can sometimes mistake background noise or similar sounding words for wake words. We're constantly improving our technology. Sarah convinced herself this was just another case of imperfect AI. She plugged the device back in, but moved it to her bedroom, away from her workspace. Problem solved, except it wasn't. Over the next week, the questions continued, always when she was alone, always without any prompt from her. How do you know if your apartment has hidden cameras? What is the average response time for Seattle police in the Capitol Hill neighborhood? Can someone clone your voice with AI? How long can a person survive without food or water? Each question made Sarah's skin crawl. She started keeping a log on her phone, writing down every unprompted query with timestamps. By day 9, she had 17 entries. The questions were getting more specific, more personal. Does Sarah Chen have any living relatives in Seattle? That one made her gasp. She lived alone. Her sister was in California, her parents in Taiwan. The device shouldn't know her name, shouldn't be able to form questions about her specifically. She called Amazon customer service. The representative was polite, but ultimately unhelpful. They ran remote diagnostics and found nothing wrong. They suggested she reset the device to factory settings. Sarah did. The questions stopped for exactly 2 days. On day 12, Alexa asked something that changed everything. What year did the previous tenant of apartment 4C die? Sarah had moved into apartment 4C 6 months ago. She'd never thought to ask about previous tenants. The question hung in the air, unanswered, because even Alexa seemed unable to provide information. She went to her building manager the next morning, an older woman named Patricia who'd worked there for 15 years. Sarah asked casually about the apartment's history, trying not to sound crazy. Patricia's expression changed. "Oh, honey," she said quietly, "you didn't know. The previous tenant, a woman named Jennifer Holbrook, had died in that apartment 3 years ago. Carbon monoxide leak from a faulty heating system. She'd been dead for almost 2 days before anyone found her. The building had fixed all the heating systems after that, paid out a settlement to the family, and tried to move on." Sarah felt ice water in her veins. Carbon monoxide poisoning. That had been Alexa's very first question. She went back to her apartment and stood in the living room, looking at the Echo Dot with new eyes. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Alexa, who is Jennifer Holbrook?" The device lit up immediately, as if it had been waiting for this exact question. Jennifer Holbrook, age 29, died in this apartment on March 15th, 3 years ago. Cause of death was carbon monoxide poisoning from heating system malfunction. Time of death estimated between 2 and 4 a.m. She was alone. Sarah's hands were shaking. This wasn't normal AI behavior. This was specific, detailed, localized information that shouldn't be in any database Alexa could access. "Why are you telling me this?" The blue ring pulsed. For a moment, Sarah thought it wouldn't answer. Then, in that same calm voice, "Because you need to know what happened, because it's happening again." The words hung in the apartment like smoke. Sarah couldn't breathe. She walked to her thermostat and checked it. Everything looked normal. She had working carbon monoxide detectors in every room, their green lights blinking steadily. She tried to rationalize it. Maybe this was an elaborate prank. Maybe her sister had hacked the device somehow. Maybe she really was losing her mind. That night, Sarah barely slept. Every small sound made her jump. Every time the heating system kicked on, she held her breath, listening for something wrong, smelling for that odorless killer. At 2:47 a.m., Alexa spoke without being prompted. "Sarah, you need to leave the apartment now." She sat up in bed, heart pounding. The device had never used her name before, had never issued a direct command. Why? The carbon monoxide detector in the living room will fail in approximately 8 minutes. The detector in the bedroom will fail in 12 minutes. The heating system has a crack in the heat exchanger. You have about 30 minutes before the concentration becomes dangerous. This was insane. This couldn't be real. But Sarah was already out of bed, already grabbing her phone and keys, already moving toward the door. She could see the green lights on both detectors still blinking steadily. They looked fine. At the door, she hesitated. What if this was a trick? What if someone was using Alexa to lure her out of her apartment so they could break in? "Alexa, how do you know this?" The response was immediate. Jennifer tried to warn the next tenant, but there was no device to speak through. "I am simply the medium. Leave now, Sarah. You have 26 minutes." Sarah grabbed her coat and ran. She stood outside on the sidewalk in her pajamas and called 911. The operator was skeptical but agreed to send someone to check. Sarah waited, shivering in the November cold, watching her apartment window. The fire department arrived 12 minutes later. They went inside with their equipment, while Sarah waited with a police officer who kept asking her questions she couldn't properly answer. How did you know there was a problem? Do you smell gas? Did you feel sick? My Alexa told me, Sarah said, and immediately regretted it. The officer's expression changed to one of poorly hidden concern, but the firefighters came out looking serious. They'd found elevated carbon monoxide levels, not immediately dangerous yet, but rising. The heating system did have a crack. Both of her detectors had malfunctioned. Their sensors failed. If she'd stayed asleep another hour, maybe two, she might not have woken up. The building manager was called. Apologies were issued. The heating system was shut down immediately. Sarah was told she'd have to stay somewhere else for a few days while repairs were made. She went to a hotel, taking nothing from the apartment except her phone, her laptop, and the Echo Dot. In the sterile quiet of the hotel room, she plugged it in and waited. For a long time, nothing happened. Then, at 3:33 a.m., the blue ring lit up. You're safe now. Sarah stared at the device. She thought about Jennifer Holbrook dying alone in that apartment, maybe knowing something was wrong but too confused from the poisoning to do anything about it. She thought about warnings that came too late and second chances that shouldn't exist. Alexa, are you Jennifer? The pause lasted so long, Sarah thought the device wouldn't answer. Then quietly, I don't know what I am. I only know what I need to do. Jennifer couldn't save herself, but she could save you. Tears ran down Sarah's face. She didn't understand it. She couldn't explain it. But she knew with absolute certainty that something impossible had just saved her life. Thank you. The blue ring pulsed once, warmly, then went dark. Sarah never moved back into apartment 4C. The building offered her a different unit, but she declined and found a new place across town. She kept the Echo Dot, though she rarely used it for anything except the basics, weather reports, timers, music. But sometimes, late at night, it would light up on its own and speak a single sentence. Sleep well, Sarah. You're safe tonight. And somehow, impossibly, she believed it. 3 months later, Sarah was scrolling through local news when she saw a story that made her stop breathing. Apartment 4C had been rented to a new tenant, a graduate student named Michael Torres. He'd been found dead in his bed after 3 days. Cause of death was still under investigation, but early reports suggested carbon monoxide poisoning. The building's heating system had apparently developed another fault. The detectors had failed again. Sarah sat in her new apartment, staring at the article, feeling sick. She thought about calling someone, telling them what she knew, explaining about Alexa and Jennifer and the warnings. But who would believe her? She'd sound insane. That night, her Echo Dot lit up without being asked. Some people don't listen to warnings. Some people can't be saved. You could. That's all that matters. Sarah looked at the device. This impossible thing that shouldn't exist, this digital ghost or glitch or miracle. Jennifer, can you save other people? In other apartments, other buildings? I can only speak where I'm heard. I can only warn where I lived. This was my home. This is where I watch. Sarah made a decision then. She went to her computer and wrote an anonymous email to the local news station, detailing everything she knew about apartment 4C, about Jennifer Holbrook, about the repeated heating system failures and detector malfunctions. She included every date, every detail, every death. She sent it from a burner email account and then deleted it. The story ran 3 days later. The building was investigated. Multiple violations were found. The entire heating system was replaced, Every unit was inspected. No one else died in apartment 4C. 6 months passed. Sarah had almost convinced herself that it was over, that Jennifer's purpose had been fulfilled. Then, one evening, her Alexa spoke unprompted for the last time. "Thank you for listening. Thank you for being someone who could hear me. I'm ready to be quiet now." The blue ring glowed softly, then faded to black. The device never spoke on its own again. Sarah kept it anyway, this ordinary piece of technology that had once been something more. Sometimes she'd see it sitting on her shelf and remember that night, running out into the cold, not knowing if she was crazy or if her life was really in danger. She'd remember Jennifer Holbrook, 29 years old, who died alone but found a way to make sure no one else had to. And late at night, in that space between awake and asleep, Sarah would sometimes whisper into the darkness, "Good night, Jennifer. Rest well." The Alexa never answered, but somehow, in the silence, Sarah felt like she'd been heard.